there! Before we get started, I want to let you know I'm having a little contest. If you want to enter to win one of my busts of Anubis, whether that's an unpainted kit or a fully painted piece, all you gotta do is subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram, and share this video, and your name goes in the hat. I'll be picking a winner July 28th, and I'll send you a message letting you know you won. Okay, now back to what you came here for. Hey, I'm Freddy, and this week I'm going to show you how to do a brush-on silicone mold using Rebound 25. So I've been doing a ton of sculpting these last few weeks using WED Clay, and I came out with this bust of Anubis that I'm really proud of. WED Clay, which actually stands for Walter E. Disney, is a water-based clay mixed with glycerin, I believe, that's perfect for speed sculpting. But unlike oil-based clay, if you don't hurry up and make a mold of it soon, it'll dry out and turn to dust just like Tom Holland at the end of Infinity War. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a brush-on mold using Rebound 25 and spandex. Be sure to check out part 2 of this video where I go over how to prep and make a mother mold using plasti paste. The first step in any mold making in my book is to sketch out what you're going to do. Sculpting this out helps you better visualize the answer to 3 key questions. How to determine the best way to demold your cast from the silicone, how to determine where to part your mother mold, and where to place registration keys. In this case, I decided to jewel cut a seam from the bottom of the neck to the bottom of the chin, and on the back of the neck making a Y shape up towards the back of the ears. For the mother mold, I've determined the best way to have it separate is in 3 sections. The right and left side of the face, and on the back, ending where the front face of the ears start to begin. And I'll place inverted cone-shaped keys along the mother mold part lines, and long strip keys along the face and the neck to prevent sagging. If you don't know what kind of silicone you want to use for your project, these kind of drawings will always help you visualize what kind of properties you're going to need in your mold. In this case, I know I'll need a lot more elasticity in the mold when I'm demolding it like a glove. I also know now that because of where I'm placing these seam lines, they're going to get a good amount of stress and potentially tear gradually over time, which is why I'm using Rebound 25 because it's designed for glove molds with deep undercuts. It's also a platinum-based silicone, so it'll last a hell of a lot longer and resist gradual deterioration unlike tin-cured silicones like Moldmax 30. Now with that all out of the way, let's prep the sculpt. I'll need to build a clay flange along my sculpt base. To give it more support, I'm hot gluing on some scrap bits of shipping foam to the base before I lay on the clay. The clay is going to need to be sealed with a clear coat to prevent any damage during the molding process. I bought this one where I get all my silicone, but what most people tend to use is Krylon Crystal Clear. Don't drench your sculpture. I put on 3 very light layers, making sure I paid attention to the hard-to-reach undercuts. Before you start mixing, make sure you have a clean and taped up workspace. You're going to need lots of gloves, mixing cups, chip brushes, and a variety of different mixing stick sizes. First, pre-mix part A and B in their separate containers. Be sure to scrape the bottom and the sides. Once pre-mixed, pour equal parts of part A and B into separate mixing cups and cover up with a lid or plastic bag when not in use. So instead of constantly pouring silicone from the bucket, I'll be pouring from these easy-to-handle cups. This silicone is meant to be mixed at a 1-to-1 ratio. The first layer, also known as the print layer, is the most important because it catches all the details. So it's easier to eliminate air bubbles on the surface, I'm going to be thinning my first layer of silicone using 2 drops of viscosity reducer. Then, thoroughly mix. You can always add more if you feel like the consistency is still too thick while you're mixing. Once mixed, pour it on your sculpt and start brushing it on the surface. Pro tip! To prevent your chip brush from shedding its bristles in your expensive silicone, go grab some thin CA glue. Run some CA glue at the bristle base of your brushes, followed by some CA kicker. Be sure to do this with every single brush you have prior to mixing your silicone. When applying the first coat, make sure you brush and stipple in all the cracks and crevices. Here, I'm making sure the ear cavities, eye wrinkles, and shoulder detail are all captured. Stippling your brush is a great way to pick up the detail and prevent air bubbles. It also helps to have an air compressor on hand to push the silicone around and pop any air bubbles below the surface. If you don't have access to an air compressor, Spray cans of dust off work just as well. When using any brush-on silicone, the most important thing you have to keep in mind is your working time. The most convenient way to do this is to use your Alexa, Google Assistant, or Siri to set timers hands-free. In my case, Rebound 25 has a pot life of generally 20 minutes, so I set 2 timers on my Google Assistant. One at 10 minutes, so I know I'm halfway through the batch, and one at 15, which gives me proper time to finish up. I've been applying small mixed batches as I go about the first layer. As you get closer to the end of your pot life, the silicone will get thicker and become harder to push around. At this point, you want to double check any undercut areas that the silicone might have missed, and babysit any drips along vertical surfaces until it's partially cured for about 60 minutes, or until it's tacky to the touch and leaves no residue on a gloved finger. While I'm waiting for that first layer, I'm going to make the strip keys so they'll be ready by the end of the day. I'm using an aluminum trough rail I picked up from Ace as the keys mold. Be sure to plug the ends with clay or you'll have an orange mess on your hands. Now this next layer I'm applying is meant to give overall average thickness to the mold. Because I have some overhanging surfaces, I'm going to do the opposite of what I did last time, and this time use thickener to chunky up the silicone a tad bit. This way it'll stick to vertical surfaces a lot easier. I'm also adding a little bit of pigment to help distinguish between layers. This thicker silicone holds up better inside divots like the ear detail, under the jaw, and the nostrils. So any excess I have, I'll focus up on building it up there. It's also important I pay attention to the base because I have an undercut going right under the collar. If your mix isn't too thick, you can still use air. When the silicone starts getting closer to the end of its pot life, use whatever time you have left to fill any exposed cavity. Here I'm using a tongue depressor to push as much silicone as I can in the gap under the collar while it's still malleable. This next layer will have to be thicker than previously, so I'll have to add a little bit more Viscosil to the batch. You'll want this silicone to be more like a paste because the goal of this layer is to fill up all undercuts. Any and all cavities need to be filled. When working with silicone that's this thick, it's best to use a tongue depressor to spread it like jam. Once I felt the undercuts had adequate coverage, I waited 20 minutes for the silicone to stiffen up and evenly applied the rest of the layer. After waiting for a partial cure of another 16 minutes, it was time for the second to last layer. This has no thickener or thinner, it's just normally mixed with a little bit of pigment. This is meant to smooth out any undercuts and beef up any areas I missed with the thick layer. And it'll be the layer we apply the power mesh to. Power mesh? What the hell is that, a new Gen Z Marvel character? Power mesh is a form of sporty spandex you can get at just about any fabric store. In this case, I got mine at Joann's. It can be sandwiched between the mold's brushed up layers to add reinforcement, while still maintaining the silicone's elasticity. Because I'm going to be jewel cutting a seam in this mold, I'm going to place power mesh above where my seam cut ends, which will prevent the rubber from tearing along that cut every time I demold it. I'm stretching and tapping the mesh on top of the silicone. Just for the hell of it, I'm going to cover up a majority of the head. All you have to do now is encase the rest of the silicone in a normally mixed batch. After waiting for another partial cure, I mix up my last layered batch. I used a minimal amount of thickener for this one. The goal here is to build up more of a shell around the power mesh. Since this is my last full coverage layer, I want to smooth out as much as I can to prevent any hooks that would get caught on the mother mold. Here, I'm babysitting it with a spatula and a tongue depressor until it fully cures. Now that I'm happy with the thickness, I can start adding keys. By now, my trough of silicone should be cured enough to cut into tiny bits. And throughout the day, I've been filling up these medical measuring cups with excess silicone so I can make plug keys. It's good practice to make fresh silicone keys for whatever you're molding that day, as opposed to some that you made last week. Silicone does bond to silicone, but if it's been cured for too long, there's no chemical bond, and it'll peel off like banana skin. You can work around this by using heptane to swell up the silicone and open up its pores. But rule of thumb is the fresher the better. I'll be placing keys along the part line that my mother mold will assemble on. I'm using these pins to tack the keys in place until the silicone underneath fully cures and glues it in. The pins won't damage the mold. Still, I wouldn't be pushing them all the way through down to the clay if I were you. For the longer strip keys, I'm using this measuring tape to measure along the sides of the mold so I know how long to cut the strips. My silicone is starting to set, so from here on out I'm going to glue in my keys with fresh mixed silicone. These keys that I'm applying on the back and front under the chin are where I'm going to be making my jewel cut. It's always better to make a cut along a key like this because it has a higher chance of staying in place, meaning there's less of a chance of mold flashing happening along the seam. Now the last bit of touch-up that needs to be done is securing the rest of the keys in place with extra silicone. I'm just building up some globs along each of the sides of the keys. There, and after a day this will be ready for mother mold layup. And there you go, that's how you go about doing a brush-on silicone mold using Rebound 25. But wait! Don't start molding without going over part 2 of this video where I go over how to make a mother mold using Plasti Paste. I included a link down below. When doing brush-on molds, there's a few key factors you need to keep in mind. Number 1, time. Even though I had a good amount of breaks waiting for partial cures, between the first and last layer, this was an all-day commitment. Though that was mainly due to its size and me trying to get good angles for filming. This isn't something you want to start in the afternoon then stop halfway because you have to take the night shift for work. Plan to babysit a mold like this for a day. Set aside more time than you think you'll need, because you'll always need more. Which brings me to number 2, material. You don't want to find out halfway through that you don't have enough silicone to finish up. Just to give you an idea, for this mold I bought the gallon size kit, which is really 2 gallons because, you know, mixing equal parts A and B, and I just about used all of it. But I do have to say I made this mold a little bit thicker than I normally would have. So I know I have enough. I always buy more material than I think I'll use in multiple different containers. In this case, I bought the gallon size and a couple different trial sizes. So that way, if I needed more silicone than the gallon size, which I already figured would be just enough, I can break open however many trial sizes I need and return what I didn't open. If you see yourself making multiple molds a month, then by all means, get a bunch of gallon sizes and stock up. And number 3, one of the things I think is most important, getting a fresh set of eyes. If you don't do a lot of mold making, or you're molding a rather unique shape, or even if you know how you're going to mold it and you have absolutely everything covered, it's always going to be beneficial to get a second opinion on how you're going to make your mold. Originally, I had a completely different idea on how I was going to go about assigning the part line. Then I showed some friends my drawings and they pointed out a couple things that I just couldn't see before, so I ended up changing how I did the mold for the better. If you don't personally know a lot of mold makers who would have an eye for this, make a post on the RPF or Stan Winston school forum asking for a couple second opinions. Considering how expensive it is to make molds that last, you want to try and do it right the first time. Now I'm going to be a stereotypical YouTuber and ask you to hit that like and subscribe button down below. And if you want to see more current work, check out my Instagram at FreddyProps for my full at FreddyProps for my full portfolio. See you next time.